Holley's all right with the fuel tables that they give you if you pick the right one according to the size of your motor, and you can build from that. But they're terrible with the timing. You're gonna have to know timing and just play with it, and depending on your motor and everything. What up, guys? So today we're gonna talk about the Holley setup in 83G body. We're gonna go over the tune and just go over some basics on Holley EFI and how it operates and how it looks, just in case people were wondering or just want to check it out. All right, so right now on the screen, I just plugged up the ECU to the computer. So what we're gonna do from here, we're gonna download from ECU. So we're gonna see what's on the computer, and we're gonna go from there. So we download it, pulling all the information. All right. So we'll start off right here with fuel. Now, Holley provides, I did not build this base map. Holley provides some base fuel maps in the software already, which is actually pretty cool. As you can see here, open global file. If you go into here, they got base files. So this came with, and this is Holley V5, by the way. So this came with some base files, and you see for multi-port fuel injection, TBI. So you got some things in here that kind of get you going. All right, so this is the base fuel map that it builds, and this kind of builds off of what you put in here, your target air fuel ratio. So you can go in there. This comes set up too, but I would change this. You know, do some research on the internet, because mine, I didn't know anything about tuning or any of this stuff until I got it. So I'm kind of learning as I go. But get your air fuels where you want it. Up here, it's going to be kind of like wide open throttle, and here it's going to be kind of like idling. And this is, say, if you're wide open throttle and you just let off the throttle, you up here around 5,500, 6,000. It's gonna come out here. You're gonna see a lot of vacuum here. It's gonna pull here and see what I gotta do, and just adding fuel. And, you know, we give a little crackle, a little pops, whatever, and it'll come back up as it comes back to idle right up around here. So what you put in here is how it's gonna adjust this, as far as the automatic learning thing is concerned. So that's your base fuel. And then you can go to learn fuel. Oh, well, this is the base fuel graph. And now you're gonna go to learn fuel. So this is currently what is learned. And I just plugged this up to the laptop. So I'm seeing this just like you guys are seeing this right now. And this is showing you percent that is minus or subtracting to or from this base table, based on what you got in here, the target. Right, so you go back to your learn table, and you can see it's adding a chunk of fuel right here in this area. It's not too bad. It's only adding 4 more percent to what's here. And we're taking fuel out down here. And not seeing no big radical changes, that's good. And mind you, I had this on here for a while, so it kind of basically learned a lot. So I got the learn turned down. So now I get into that next. So what you do here, for it to keep getting better and better, you want to transfer what is learned so far. And I do this every time I hook up the laptop to the car after a couple drives or whatever. I just hit transfer learn to base. And what you don't want to do, it says, do you want to smooth the fuel table with the learn table? No, you don't want to do that, because if you do that, it's going to change this part plus everything around it. What you wanted to change on this base table is only the sales that's changed here. So you hit no. And the only thing, see, now this is reset to 0 because it's ready to learn again. So you go back to your base fuel table, and you see only where these dots are. It only changes. It didn't smooth anything around here to nothing that it changed here affected anything that it didn't learn. So you do that. Yeah, let me save this while I'm here. Let's save this down. I like to save mine by the dates I did this on. So we'll put this like so. And there you go. Now I'm kind of skipping around since while we just on fueling, how this learn table is actually generated. So let me click around here and see where it's at. All right, so we're gonna go to over here, and we're gonna go to closed loop, learn loop. All right, we're gonna go to learn parameters. Remember, this is how it learns. This is how fast or slow it learns your car. And when you get this thing from the factory, you just put it on from Holley, all these numbers are gonna be 100. So after a while of driving, you notice on, let me go back here to the fuel table. Once you notice in your learn table, your percents, I've noticed after a while, mine wasn't going over, I would say 6-7%. So you don't need it to learn no more than 100%. If you come here after driving for a while, from here, and it's only adjusted within a certain percentage, it's only adjusted, say if it's just in 20%, okay, so you can come here, right? So you learn. So since I was only seeing like maybe like a 7% max change, I changed the whole thing across the board to 8. So that limits how much it can learn. And this also comes to the closed loop. This is what it actually changes on the fly. The ECU actually changes the fuel table on the fly according to what you got in the set target air fuel map. I know it's getting all over the place, but stick with me. So if I'm seeing the learn table not going over 7%, so I put this at 8, this locks it down, so it doesn't need to overcorrect any more than it has to. It only can focus on the 8%. And as it gets lower, say after that, like I went through the learn tables pretty fast, but I believe I saw a 7 on there, so it's still kind of up there. But as you apply those changes to the map gets better. No numbers gonna drop lower. And the reason you want to set this lower, as you see the learn table goes lower, because say your O2 sensor goes out, and this stuff is set to 100 to change 100 plus or 100 negative. So the computer's gonna think you read the extra lean or you read the extra rich. And if you got allowing the computer to do 100% change, say the O2 sensor goes out and it reads dead lean, so it's gonna add 100% fuel on top of whatever cell you're in. So you up here at you already getting 103, I don't know what's this, pounds per hour, and you add another 100% to that because the O2 sensor goes out, then you know the car probably won't even run. Or vice versa, if it reads extra rich, it's going to lean it out, it's going to pull all the fuel out. And I'm naturally aspirated, so maybe the worst thing that happens is the car cut off. But if you're, you know, in some kind of boosted application, that could be kind of, you know, it could be catastrophic. So you come here, so even if the O2 sensor went out or I was to unplug it and just run it, the computer it'll lock it down. It couldn't make no more than the 8% change overall while I'm driving. Okay, so I know that was a lot, but while we're on fuel, we're gonna stick on some more fuel stuff. So we went over the base fuel, and this is just a graph of what's here. Like I said, I use the map, one of the maps that Holley had. The fuel map is all right now. The timer map, that's a different thing, but we'll get to that. So the acceleration enrichment. Now this is another thing too. Mind you, like for me, because I wasn't a tuner, I didn't know anything about this till I bought it and started playing with it. So this would be kind of like, I guess, like an accelerator pump. So you hit the gas, the accelerator pump on the carburetor. The faster you hit the gas, the faster it's gonna give the extra boost of fuel. Because you're gonna need an extra burst of fuel with extra burst of air, and this is gonna carry it. The extra fuel, burst of fuel, is gonna carry the car until it lands back on the base map, basically, because you're gonna need some enrichment if you stump the throttle. So this is the rate of change. So how fast you stump the throttle is how fast it's gonna add, you know, fuel, you know, pounds per hour, how fast you stump the pedal. Now this here is, let me see here. Now I'm not too in depth with this, but this is the TPS versus coolant temp. So kind of what this is, right? When the car is cold, you got it down here. It needs more fuel to idle, but it doesn't need more fuel if you're whacking the throttle. So if you already got more fuel at idle because the car is cold and you start whacking it, it's gonna get too rich. So right here, what it's doing, according to the temperature, I have it pulling fuel from this acceleration enrichment table, right? According to the temperature, but you shouldn't be just whacking the throttle when your car is under, I say 140 degrees, 120 degrees like that. But if you do, it's going to subtract these numbers from these numbers. And you learn all this in live views as the car's running. You can see what's going on and you can kind of put it where it needs to be, right? And this here is kind of, these two tables go hand in hand. This one here is AE versus TPS, and it's AE correction versus TPS. So I've seen online, I would say, there's two ways you can do this. You can turn this down a little bit for the acceleration measure. If you got to turn this down here, then you can turn this up here and kind of bring it down as you go. Or you can bring this down. These two working hand in hand. It's kind of confusing, but mind you, I'm just learning as I go with this. But this kind of adds more fuel on top of the base map. Let me just break it down. On top of the base map, whatever your numbers are here, this is going to add a little bit more percent change according to where your foot is on the position. So this is the position of throttle. You're holding the throttle at 60% open. Man, your 100 is basically like 0 on the Holley, but it starts at 100, because if you go under 100, then it goes negative. So you adding 108% correction on top of this, depending on the percent, your throttle position, where you got your throttle at, goddammit. If it's 100%, you on the flow, then it's adding, because you're gonna need it, okay? Like I say, I learned this by just driving it and having this hooked up and watching the ball go up and down and move around and watching the air fuel ratios all over here. But say that's a whole nother videos in depth. Maybe I can go over it with the thing running and showing you and all this stuff, but it'll be an hour-long video if I do that, so that'd be another one. So I'm just going over my understanding of the Holley software from just owning Holley Terminator on 83 G-Body. But the fueling is, it takes a little bit to get it dialed in, but once you get it dialed in, it'll run pretty good. So let's go over to another area, because I'm done talking about the fueling thing. And this is basically sensors, which map sensor, coolant temperature sensor, or sensor settings, but this is all basic, just sensors that came with the kit. So I didn't have to modify anything in this area. And this here is just basically what it is. Number of cylinders, how big the engine is, load sensing now. I see some people use speed, density, VE base. Like I said, I didn't know anything about this until I got it. It was already set on speed and density, so I left it there. So this determines how this looks and how you adjust it. So right now, it's going by pounds per hour, how much fuel the motor is getting per hour. That's what mine is on, so I just left it there. And the O2 sensor, the type of fuel, and this is the clear TPS. So say if you are stumping the pedal while you're cranking it, it's not going to allow it to see any more than 35%. You're only on the throttle 35%. No matter if you stump it to the floor, you try to mat it to the floor and crank it, the ECU is only going to allow a 35% change according to the throttle. It's not going to allow 100 like a carburetor. If you just crank it and you just stump it to the floor, it's giving it 100% of whatever's in the bowl or accelerator pump or whatever. EFI, you can manage that. So even if you got your foot to the floor, they kind of help you save yourself. It won't just dump a bunch of fuel while you're cranking. It just add an extra, whatever 35% throttle is on your fuel map, if it makes any sense. This is just so before it cranks it shoots a little mist of fuel in there to kind of help you get going. I mean, once the motor hot, you don't really need it, but there's not really a setting to do it per temperature. But when it's cold, you kind of need it. And this is just fuel system, fuel pump. How long the fuel pump primes when you turn the key before you crank it. 3 seconds is good for me, and this is a whole bunch of injector stuff. And this is all preset when I got the kit. I didn't have to mess with any of that, and I didn't. So let's see what's over here. Okay, so this is your idle. So didn't have to mess with that. This is basically the IAC, which keeps the car running when you take your foot off the throttle. Basically like a controlled air leak past the throttle blades. This is your idle spark. So what this does is, if you have Holley controlling your timing, which I do, this will control the timing, the help it idle. Say, just kind of getting into the spark map, which we get there, but I explain it while I'm here. I notice when the car is cold, this doesn't really kick in. It goes all off of, you know, what you have here in the spark table. Because the car is cold, it doesn't really need to, you know, do much with the spark if your spark table is good. But when it's hot, and say this thing idles, I have it set to idle at 15 degrees I idle. But when it's hot, the motor wants to keep up past the set idle, say like 850. Because the motor's hot, it doesn't even need the 15 degrees that I idle to even, it doesn't even need 15 degrees to idle, so it backs it down. So once it backs the timing down and it drops it, this is what these numbers here are for, how fast it adjusts. So once it takes timing out, say if your idle shoots above the target, it drops the timing to bring your idle back down. And if the idle drops down too fast, then it'll pick it back up to get it to the idle. And so what you have is, from what I know from my car, the higher you set this P term, whatever the hell it is, and the D term, I set it lower. I kind of do half. So if I put this at 100, I do 50. And it's going to kind of bounce the idle around, well, bounce the spark around to control the idle. That's going to give you that, because the idle drops down, the timing goes up. Timing comes up. No, let me repeat. Idle drops down, the timing goes up. Idle goes up, timing comes down, and you got this going back and forth, trying to keep it. So you can uncheck this, and it won't use the spark to control the help with the timing. It'll just probably be a steady, smooth idle, and it'll just whatever your idle map is. But if you enable this, it'll fluctuate the timing with the idle, and that'll give you the And you know, I don't want to get too aggressive on it, because I notice when I'm at a red light, the car is jerking hard, but it sounds good. It chops. So that's what I noticed from changing that. And this is just your IAC control. So when you crank up your car, it'll idle down, how fast it idles down, and what RPM it catches to idle down, the decay and all that, which, like I said, that's a whole nother video in itself. This is the startup. So basically this is be like holding the throttle open for a little while you're cranking, and let a little bit more air through with the gas that's going to come through with the pump shot, and how long it holds before it lets it go, and how long before it fades out, before it drops down to the IAC. And this is more of, say, when you're going down the road and you let off the gas and to kind of help it come down. This is more kind of help it start up, and this is more to help it idle, and this is just the kind of system you got controlling idle. All right, like I said, I'm kind of blowing through this, and I'm not precise, but this is what it is for the 83G body, okay? And so this is your idle speed. So this here, all this is determined off of where you set in here, where you want your car to idle. So anything under 60 degrees, this thing is going 1300 up. So when I crank it and it's cold, it's around 60, 70 degrees, it'll start up, and it'll hold right here around 1300. And as the car gets warmer, it'll creep down, and it just, I got my idle at 850 because it sounds good around there. So this is real good, and this actually works as long as you got your throttle screw right and everything. I mean, it basically be like a motoring car. It'll crank up, warm up, and idle down, and be ready to go. And this is the IAC park position. This helps more in colder weather. So remember what I said here, It's basically it holding the throttle open, like as if you had your foot on the gas, but it's using the IAC to let a little more air through while you're cranking it. So this is how long you hold it, depending on the percent you get it here. So you see, when this thing is cold, I got it damn near wide open. So matter of fact, if I link this right now as I am plugged up to the car, and you see the fueling has changed because I added that learn table to the base table. So we're sitting at the ECU. Let's go ahead and put that to the computer right now. And you see the red dot pop up. So this is where everything is sitting right now, where the car is cold. You see the RPM stall. AFR is nothing because the car's not running. The ignition time is at 1 degrees TPS. See, if I go over here, you look at the TPS, and I mash it, you can see it. Well, see, there you go. So let's look it up right now. And this is the manifold air temperature. Like I said, the car's cold. It's been sitting without running for about a week. This is the temperature of the cool end. Like I say here, the IAC position. So this is where it's at now. So since it's about 80 degrees, it's holding it at about 81%. You see, as the car gets warmer, it drops down. So when you shut the car off and it sits for a while, the temperature goes up. But it's not that the motor's getting hotter. It's just that the water pump is not spinning. So the water is just sitting in one spot and is making the reading of the temperature go up. So usually once I've been driving for a while, when I park it, it'll be around the 180, 200 area. It might come around here. So it doesn't need as much air when I'm cranking it when it's hot. As it cools off, it goes back up just to give it a little bit more air while it crank. And like I said, and that was all just playing with it over time. But that's basically the function of that. Now what we got next here is, okay, that's the idle stuff we went over. Now this is the timing table. And you see this lighting up. This is where we're sitting at now. We're sitting at 25 degrees of timing, which, like I said, it's not running. But when it's cranking, it's not going to actually crank at that. Let's see if I missed that setting. I don't know if I went over that with you guys. Okay, so I'm gonna have to go offline and disconnect from the car to show you this. Okay, ignition parameters. So this is where you set what kind of ignition you got in the car. So I have a GM HEI computer control distributor, and this is the rev limit at 62, which I don't even need that much. I mean, it's a small block Chevy, but just in case it revved up and I didn't shift in time, it'll catch it and save the motor. So this is the cranking. I got it at 1 degrees at cranking. The lower you put the timing at cranking, the easier it is on the starter. It won't be trying to buck back on the starter because it's trying to fire the spark plug before the motor reaches top dead center. It probably could take more than one, but it probably go 5 or so, but I'll leave it there. So, and this is crank to run RPM. So anything under 200 is going to drop it down to 1 degrees. And it's usually that would be around your cranking area. So when you come back here to your timing thing and you see a 25 here, from 5 to 6, and I got it 25 degrees. And this is in case the motor starts to stumble. So sometimes it's real cold. The motor will start. It'll run up to about 1300 and stay for a while, but it'll start to, for the IAC kicks in good, it'll start to come down a little bit. And this is where it'll run into this 25 degrees and this buck the motor back up. So then it'll hit the 25 degrees, just like going and turn the distributor up. Once the idle's coming down, it'll buck it back up and it'll knock it back in the zone. So remember, my idle is set about 850, so I'm usually around in this area anyway. So if any situation happens where the motor starts to die or whatever before it falls, it'll try to throw timing at it to save it, and usually that works. So, but Holley's all right with the fuel tables that they give you if you pick the right one according to the size of your motor, and you can build from that. But they're terrible with the timing. You're gonna have to know timing and just play with it, and depend on your motor and everything. So I give you a brief example of what I got going on. So this is kind of like wide open area up here at the top. When you're in the throttle, you're in wide open. This is it here. And mind you, my timetable is probably real conservative. And this is where you probably just cruising around. You're going to be idling up in this area. And this is by RPM, how fast you're going. This is your manifold, pressure, vacuum, etc. The more vacuum, the lower you are down here. The less vacuum, the higher you are up here. This is when you're really on it. And you see, and I kind of got to say, if I'm really on it, then seeing little to no vacuum up here. And when you let off the throttle and just all of a sudden you go to a major vacuum situation because the motor, the RPM is so high, right? And the vacuum is so high, so it'll bring it down here. And then what I have to do is drop the hell out the time, and this will give you the crackles and the pops a little bit. And if you remember when I went back to the fuel map, this kind of matches here on my learn table. So I got that, not my learn table, my target air fuel table. Kind of got that set up the same way. So if I'm ever nailing this thing, just let off the throttle, which I usually do after I'm nailing it. You adding fuel, when you went, it's coming down. It's doing that number right there. So you got the fuel map matching this timing map doing the same thing. So it just sounds cool when you nail it and let it off. And I'm pretty sure with it dropping timing like that and adding fuel, probably just helping cool down the cylinder a little bit too. So you kind of got to know timing. I can't really give you a direction. Depends on your motor, know how you want it with the timing. But I can at least tell you how to set it up. So once you put your distributor in, this car has a distributor on it. It's a small block Chevy, but an electronic distributor. So let me see if I can do this. I'm gonna have to get on. I'm gonna have to link up with the car to be able to do this. Which I think I am gonna have to. Yes, I do. All right, so you got your distributor in. If you run the car with a distributor, you would put it in, and then you go here. It's real simple. You go here, then you go to enable static time, and then you set this to whatever you want. So you set it at 8, and then you hit set. Now the Holley is locked in at 8 degrees, so you take your time and you take your distributor and you turn it until you hit 8 degrees on your timing tape, your balancer tab, whatever you got. That's pretty much it. Then you lock it down, so now it's locked in. If it says 8 on the motor and you got to set the 8 here and it's working, everything should be lined up. And then when you close this out, then the Holley's going to take control of everything. So if you put 15 here, you got 700 RPM, you should be at 15 degrees. Same thing for all across the map. You understand what I'm saying? So that's how that goes. And let me see if there's anything else, because mind you, I'm just giving a service on a lot of this because I'm really a novice on this. But I'll show you what I'm saying. Oh yeah, in this screen here, this is, say if it's running, you want to monitor everything you're going on. Say you're, let's this back up. Say okay. See now down link that is showing you everything, and injector pulse width. If you want to get that technical with it, you can. But you got all your information. When this thing runs, you see all this here moving. Like I said, and that'll be another video, me going over that, because that'll come into data logs and everything. So while I'm online, you'll see kind of where everything's sitting, because the car's not running. And then you can see, where it at with the timing. And then for your idle, it's real good. So you see where, if I cranked it up now, this is where it would idle at 1075, because the car's about 80 degrees right now. You see we got 12.2 volts. So this is just a brief rundown, guys, and I know I kind of blew through this, but if it helped you, give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and I appreciate y'all watching. And if you got any questions down there, I try to answer them. Just put them in the comment. I'll holler at y'all. Peace.